Okay, let's do some edit designs in this section of Acufil tool. So I want to explain just a couple of things about this to you. Again, I think that the title and the description here might be a little bit misleading if you take it literally, because the description here for edit designs is telling us that we are creating a single pattern, and this pattern can be used to sew a series of design patterns to make a border design. So why I think this is a little bit misleading is that the picture here shows just this single little leaf. What we're doing here is we are creating a design that's going to be a Jeff, it's a JPX design, but it's going to actually work kind of like a Jeff design, in which when you've combined one or more motifs together, it keeps them as a single pattern. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's one little pattern. It just means that whatever you combine together on your embroidery hoop is going to be saved as a single pattern. And then you can use that pattern in different ways. And one of the ways that they're suggesting here is that you might want to make a border pattern. So it does have another little unique feature to this here that will make sense to you when I open it up. So here it is. It's opened up, and what I'm going to show you now is that the editing size of this part of the program is always going to be starting off here with your square 22 hoop, which is 220 by 220 millimeters. The reason why is because you are limited in this section of the program to what will actually fit into your ASQ 22 hoop. All right, you can make it smaller, but you can't make it any bigger. All right, so for right now, we're going to leave it as that, and we're going to say, okay, let's move that design list over just a little bit. Just like all the other times here, you know, if you wanted to adjust your editing size, you could do that. But we're going to leave it as we set it. You can open up your design tab and you can insert some designs here. So the design that I'm going to work with is, I'm going to open up this little daisy. And one of the things I'm going to demonstrate to you in here is that you can resize your design just like you can in all the other parts of Horizon Link Suite. But here you're only going to be able to resize it up and down by 10%. That's compared to the other parts of the program where you can size up and down by 20%, right? So let's drag it up to the top part of our hoop. Let's go ahead and copy and paste it and drag her down. Oh, let's center it in the hoop here. I'm going to just kind of try to look at that there. Let's go ahead and hit the centering button. Okay. And then this one, I'm going to also copy and paste, and I'm going to drag it down also as far down as I can get it on the hoop. And this one here, I'm going to put that as far up at the top of the hoop as I can get it. So I've got a little bit of space going on in between each one of these little flowers. All right, so what I could do with them now is I could select all 3 of them and center them to just make sure that they're actually centered in this space. So what I could do with this design at this point is I could go ahead, I'm going to zoom out a little bit to demonstrate this. I could go ahead and I could hit the next button so that my write a design will become available to me. And I could send this over to my USB stick, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to rename this and I'm going to call it One Daisy. Okay, because I'm going to do something different with it in a little while, and I'm going to send it over. All right, so there it is as a One Daisy, and it is centered in the middle of my ASQ 22 hoop. All right, let's go back to previous. So this is where that little recommendation on the start page about the, let's see, I hope this isn't going to want me to change it now. Okay, I'm going to cancel out. Where it was saying that we could use this as a border design. And this is where this other cute little trick comes in. See the little arrow, these little bounding boxes that are around this shape here? If I were to drag these and move them in until I get close to the edge of my daisies, I have now created a different size to my editing of my design. So a little while ago it was 220. We're going to notice down here it is now 72 millimeters wide instead of the 220. And the thing that's neat about this is going to enable us to actually send this as a very narrow design over to our embroidery machine. All right, so I'm going to then hit my next button. I'm going to write this design over. I'm going to call this one 2 Daisy. Okay, so We've got this, basically it's the same design. Only difference is that one daisy is centered in the middle of the entire field. This one's going to be centered only in that little bit of a space. All right, so let's take a look at something here. I want to see if they actually look different. I'm just experimenting. Nah, they don't really look any different on my thumbnails. Okay, so now what I've done is I have saved this design, and I'm going to use this design in the next section of this video. All right, so but one other thing that we could possibly do if we really wanted to do this with this design. I'm moving those boundary boxes all the way out. Let's say that typically when you are embroidering, if you were going to embroider this on the border of a quilt, this is where we kind of need to plan ahead and think about, what am I really going to do with this design? Let's select all of them, and let's drag them all the way over to the right side of the hoop. Because really, if you were using this as a border on the edge of a hoop of a quilt, you wouldn't want to have all of that extra fabric. You wouldn't want this to be centered in the hoop. In other words, you would really want it to be moved over to the far side of your hoop. So then you wouldn't have to have so much excess fabric available to you, so that you could actually clamp those magnets onto the hoop. I hope that that makes sense to you. So what I've done now is I've moved it all the way over to the right. This time when I move my arrows, I don't know if it's going to let me do it. Oh, it's not going to. I thought it would. I'm so glad I make mistakes sometimes. Let's send it all back to the center. Okay. And then we can actually do that little adjustment. Okay. Anyway, I learned something new. I was just kind of thinking that actually this design, you're going to be wanting to hoop it over at the far side of your hoop. Okay, next we're going to look at the last section of this program, and we're going to be using this same design in that section.